Hello, everyone. Welcome back to SureFire Live. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope we have a good crowd. I have a very special guest coming on, and in one of the more unique ways, and he's doing an interview from his car as he's driving. The plan was for him to be stationary, but he is trying to miss a big snowstorm, so he has decided to join us mobile. So if the call gets a little rough, we might have to reschedule. So far, I've talked to him for a few minutes before, and the connection was good. So our guest tonight is Taylor Hill, and longtime friend. Also works with me in all my businesses. He's our marketing company, and he's been with Spark Marketer. Most people know him that way. But he's also worked with so many businesses that he's got a lot of insight on how chimney companies work, and most importantly, like what they're not doing right. And so he is doing a coaching type of business, and I'm going to have him talk about that. That being said, we have had some SureFire meetings, and we have several new classes coming out, and we have some new potential content creators for us. It's very exciting. We're going to bring those to you. And we're also going to be working with the United Buyers Group. And I don't know how many people are out there with them, but we're going to be working with them as a education provider as well. So some cool stuff coming up for SureFire. I've got my Burrowtech hat on, my powder coating company. This is Mike Fazy introduced us to that company called Braided Brands and Branded Bills, sorry. And they have high quality stuff. And I see a lot of people get that. And I think Mike Fazy should get a kickback from those guys for promoting them. But with that being said, let me bring on Taylor to talk about his new product. Hey, buddy.
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm good. How's the drive?
Well, luckily Jonathan's driving so that I can be over here.
Is he
That's a
going to
good
stop?
thing.
Is he going to stop at Culver's for you to get a burger?
Well, we may stop at Culver's when this is over. We might do it. We've been heading as far south as we can go, as fast as we can go. We were up in Ohio, and when yesterday when they said, yeah, Tuesday night into Wednesday is going to be 5 to 8 inches of snow, I kind of looked over at him and said, "Oh, we may be driving all night."
Oh, gosh. Well, I'll tell you, Jonathan is a great driving companion. We've done a few things together, and we may not totally agree on politics and things, but man, we agree on being friends, and we always have a good time together. And to me, that's special. So you got a great guy that's ahead of the helm. Please don't let him hear anything I say about him positive, though.
Okay, he can't hear a thing. I've got my AirPods in. He has no idea. I'll tell him that you don't even like him when we get off here.
Exactly. um, so I got a first comment of the night from Diane Pilger. She says, "Wow, that's really keeping to his commitment. Safe travel." So they're applauding you, Taylor, for doing what you're doing. And Diane, good to hear from you. Really good to hear from you. All right, so let's talk business, man. What
All
are you
right.
doing these days?
Well, I came to this realization a couple of years ago that I sure do have a lot of people that call me about marketing. And then when I start talking to them, I realize they kind of have a business problem, not always a marketing problem.
You've said that
And
from the jump. When you started work with
yeah,
me, start with other people, you go, you know what? There's some business issues that my marketing can't fix, or maybe could even make worse.
well, people don't realize marketing functions as a megaphone. So if you are a lousy business and you want to market a lousy business, you're just telling the world, "Hey, I'm a lousy business." And so, I turn people away at times, and I've turned them down at times because it's not going to help them. Marketing is not what they need. They really need some business direction, and a lot of it is basic business direction. If that
Right.
makes sense.
Well,
It's
nobody's
like
told them.
exactly, and it's like
Yeah.
you. I mean, you just don't run a chimney company. So if all you did was run a chimney company, then people may say, well, you know what, Mark may not be a good business guy because he just runs a chimney company, and who knows if he's really, running that good or not. But you have Vortec, you've got Poppy and
Yeah,
Pete, you've got some really good successful businesses. You see where I'm going? You got
I do.
Top
But to
Hat.
your point, a lot of that was learned lessons from other people. And then I kept applying them over and over and over in other businesses. So whatever success I have in those businesses is due to lessons I learned in the chimney business that I just replicated and duplicated.
Exactly, because when you have the basic business knowledge, it doesn't matter what business you're in.
Right.
Really doesn't.
Right.
So, there are really just 6 areas of business you have to master. Or you have to know enough to where you can lead somebody else to master that. If that, yeah.
Yeah.
So you as the leader of your company, you have to know enough about basic business function to know if somebody is doing a good job there or not. It's that inspect what you expect. You have to be able to inspect it and know enough about it to inspect it and know if it's good or not.
Well, and then
So,
how do you deliver that message? Is the problem that you find, is it a training problem? Is it a person problem? Is it a leadership problem? Like because you find the problem, knowing what to do with that information is also a key of how to remedy it. You don't always get rid of the person. You may have a training problem. You may have an understanding problem. You've trained them, but they still do it wrong. Like they maybe just be the wrong person. So you're right about that. So you said 6 areas. Can you name those 6 areas that people need to know?
sure, leadership's number one. So look at it like an airplane. All right. Airplane cannot fly without these 6 areas, and a business cannot run without these 6 areas.
Yeah.
Cockpit, that's your leadership. You're
Yep.
never going to get off the ground if you don't have a good pilot, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I've heard
who's the
if you're in a boat, you may never get out of the harbor unless you have a direction. You push all the gas forward and you may bounce around the harbor if you don't have a good guy at the helm and knowing where they're going.
Oh my goodness. If you don't have somebody knowing what they're going on the water, you're in trouble. But here's the worst thing about an airplane. What if you get an airplane in the air and the leader doesn't know what they're doing? I mean, you're in trouble there too. Both those things could potentially lead to death,
Yeah.
which means like if you've got a bad leader in either one of those situations, you could destroy a business.
Yep.
So it's real important to have that cockpit.
Right.
Then you have to have the wings. I love the analogy of the wings because the right wing is your marketing, your left wing is the sales. Marketing and sales is not the same.
Right.
A lot of people think it is.
Right.
Now in marketing, if you do marketing well, you try to pre-sell so that the actual sell goes a lot better.
That's a great
That's
point.
really the intent of marketing, is to bring people there and bring them in a way that they are already pre-sold in what you do. So you've got marketing and sales. So those are your wings. So that's the first 3. Then you've got your products. All right. So your products, very important thing that you have to know, products and services. Are you doing your products and services in a way that makes total sense? Some people do, some people don't. It's
You'd be
very
surprised how
interesting.
many times a product is losing you money, or
Oh,
you'd be surprised because everybody does these 10 things as a chimney company, but you may not realize, and we had to change some of our things when you deep dive into each product, that you maybe shouldn't be doing some of the work, or you need more training or raise prices. Like that's a big one, Taylor, is your product. Like everybody thinks they know their product, but
mhm.
a lot of times they don't know if that product is actually making money. They just do it.
Yeah. And the real issue is this. I love the fact that you said what you just said, because if you can make a business case for every product and service in your business, then you've got a really good product or service.
Interesting. I like
But
that.
most people can't make a business case on their product, even if it's good. They don't know how to make a business case because they've never sat down and figured out the process.
That's
There's a
interesting.
process.
I've
Yeah.
got I got a couple of things I don't know that I can totally make a case for yet. It's interesting. That's a good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if you can't do it, then you need to pause a minute and say, huh, I need to make a good business case. If you had to sell it to somebody, if somebody brought something to you and said, hey, Mark, I want to do this, you would make them make a business case of why that's going to work.
that's fair.
If
I
you
like
can't, yeah, if you can't do that to yourself, you need to figure out what that is.
that.
So
Yeah.
that's a really good
Oh,
thing when you come into products and services.
couple quick comments. Somebody
Sure.
said it's like saying you can do masonry, so you sell chimney rebuilds, but you can't lay a straight course or not know how to price the job. Yeah, that's
There you go.
yeah. Hey, Dan says Dan sells watching. Then somebody else said, I bet you could survive a boat better than an airplane. And then Yvette
Well,
all day, she always watches. Hey, Yvette, good to see you. Hopefully, we'll see you at the NCSG event. She says, good evening, gents. So I just wanted to catch you up on what's been said. So those are 5 things. What's the last thing?
cash flow.
Oof.
Actually, it's only 4 things.
Okay.
Cash flow's number 5,
Gotcha.
which here's how I know somebody doesn't know cash flow or know their numbers. First thing I ask them, what's your budget? Can you tell me the percentage of chimney companies that have a budget?
I have no idea. It's not
It,
many.
it's closer to zero. I'm just
You know,
telling you.
when you're small,
That's the truth.
when you're small, it's easier to get by without a budget. As you grow, it gets detrimental to run without a budget. And there's a moment in there where you have to decide to run on a budget or guide by a budget because you can't control it anymore just by your cash flow, by thinking you know the cash flow and just looking at your bank account. Like most people's budget is what's in the bank.
Yeah, yeah. What I get most of the time is, well, let me go ask my wife. That's family-owned businesses, which is fine. I'm not saying this is. I'm just telling you
Oh,
what
it's
I
fair.
hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me go ask my wife, or I need to check with my bookkeeper or my office manager. And they're going to tell me if it's okay if I do this thing. So my question is, if you want to buy a truck or if you need to buy a truck and you're having to ask that question, or if you need marketing, or if you need to hire somebody, I mean, at what point do you know you don't have it?
When you run out of money, like that, if you don't have a budget that you set ahead, you know you've overspent when you run out of cash, and then therefore all of a sudden you get conscious about all the money you spent. But until then, so like for us right now, we're going through our budgeting. This will be the month, January, February is when we typically go through budgeting and go through line by line and figure out what we need, what we're going to need more of. We're going to need more vans. Like, what's the real number? Like, where's the big expenses coming? What can we forecast? That kind of thing. Like, so yes, I agree that budget is, I mean, that should be your navigation. It should be your GPS.
Well, it's actually your fuel.
Okay.
It's your fuel
Yeah.
because you can't do anything without cash flow and money.
Yeah. So Diane says numbers are scary. You can easily work yourself out of business not knowing them. Diane, that's a great point. I
Yeah.
I personally don't like the number part, and Taylor does. Taylor's always been a numbers guy, and I'm more like tell me the numbers later. Don't interfere with me. But you can't run these businesses. I can't run what I've got now without some real financial controls in place, or I will just go off the cliff. I will,
Yeah.
because I'm
You,
totally optimistic that everything is always going to work out, and that's great when it is. But it's really bad when you run off the cliff and you got hundreds of employees that are going to go there with you because you didn't do your, it's a stewardship, right? Running a business is a
yeah.
stewardship, and if you don't treat it like that, you're in charge of this. And I now take it super seriously. I mean, obviously, but so
And
in those, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, and the last one is overhead.
Okay.
So that's the whole body of the plane is your overhead.
I like
And
that.
it's the heaviest, it's the most complex, it has more stuff in it than anything else. So
You
all
know,
those things you have to have.
with overhead, the older the business gets, the fatter it gets. And there's a lot of things start creeping into overhead that weren't there when you were younger, but free coffee and free this and more trips and more space. And you get a big warehouse, but then you fill it up with junk and then you need a bigger warehouse. That's overhead growing, but you really have an organizational problem, not a space problem. Like,
Yeah.
you're right about overhead, and that overhead just creeps on you over time, and all the things just creep up to just take your cash away. So you've seen all these things.
And
What are you
yeah.
doing about it? So what's the thing?
So what I really have a heart for are people that are in one of three situations. The first one is there's a guy out there that wants to start a business, and he may be a great technician, whether it's chimney, whether it's HVAC, don't care what it is, any home service business that's out there. But they just don't have any business knowledge and need to understand basic business.
Okay.
I would love to be their coach. That's one of them that I would like. The second one is the guy that's been in business 3 to 5 years and has made a lot of money, doesn't know where the money went, has no idea what's going on, and he just needs help. That's the second one I'm looking for. And the third
Mhm.
one is the guy that's been in business. I don't care how long he's been in business, maybe 40 years, but he keeps at the end of every year has the same problem.
Yeah. So let's talk about, and I talked about it recently on a podcast, but let's talk about the need for outside intervention in your company and how important that is. Like, we were talking before the show, but to me, I couldn't do all the things I do without having a lot of outside help, consultants, coaches, trainers, like all those things. And I know there's a few coaches and trainers in the industry, and there's several of them that watch the show and they're on, and they're all good in their different ways. And I think there needs to be more. I think chimney people, you can't watch a show of mine or listen to a podcast and think that that's coaching. Like, tell
Mhm.
people what coaches really are and how that you differentiate them between other services.
So a coach, the way that I look at coaching is little league. I mean, I coach my kids, both my sons in little league growing up. You know, in little league baseball, you've got coaches, you got people that come in and train. I mean, we used to bring people in to train them how to hit. We used to bring people in to just do drills and train them on drills to better be able to field. We had my youngest son was a pitcher. We took him and he had a pitching coach at the time. And so these are all the different things with coaching. Look at people like, oh, what is it? Lawrence with the Jaguars that
Yeah.
was having
Taylor
all
Lawrence.
kinds of problems. Yeah,
Mhm.
Taylor Lawrence. And what did he get that changed his world this year? Oh, he got a coach. I mean, they've talked about that.
There's not a top athlete in the world. There's actually not a top performer that I know of in the world that doesn't have some active coaching mentorship plan. And honestly, the more successful you get, the more money you have to spend on it. It's not like you get a time when you don't have one. I've got one now that's starting to work with us. We worked through several coaches, and Larry Wingate was one of mine. He's not doing it anymore. I've
Mhm.
got a new coach coming on with a guy who's run $1 billion company. He's going to be my new coach. Even John Meredith with Saver Systems. He's super successful. He was under the tutelage of Clay Mathiel, who started IMES. Like, the problem with people that don't think they need a coach is the problem that they believe they already know what they already know
Yeah,
it. The best
yeah.
chance you have to
Coach.
build a business is understand you don't know it.
And the thing that happens is a lot of, and don't take this wrong, because I really believe in the coaches that have experience in the same business,
Sure.
whether it's HVAC or whatever. But what I see, and I'm talking about an HVAC coach that I have been following for a long time, what I see with him is he coaches everybody the same, and
Mm,
everybody's not the same. So everybody, when you are thinking that everything you do with one person, you're just going to do the same thing. You're going to teach them the same thing, have the same, whatever. They're not the same. I mean, when I was at Little League team, I had a guy that couldn't field worth a damn. We had to really work on that. Pitchers, kids that wanted to be pitchers that couldn't throw a ball from here to there, you had to teach them how to do that. So these are all the things you have to look at, because every business is different, because they're run by human beings. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, human beings are different. We have different values, we have different skill sets, we have different ways of dealing with other people. And so we have to be coached differently. And so
yeah,
to me, coaching is not putting somebody in my story and coaching them my way, but coaching is really getting to know them so that I can really have value and add value to their lives and their business.
I
That to
love
me is
that.
coaching.
I agree with that fully. A couple comments. Yvette says, if you know how to price a job or plan to buy a new vehicle, but this is back on budgeting, and you can know how to figure out what you
Hmm.
need to make in order to make the purchase, then do it. If you can't figure out how to price your needs and then figure out how to get it, then you're on top of it. And I am your numbers gal. So she's a numbers gal. So um, that's part of the planning budgeting phase, back on that for a minute, where you got to put in everything that you're going to need in this year or in 4 years. And if it's $100,000 truck and you want to pay cash for it, then it's, how do you get $2,000 a month for in the future? Like, you have to forecast, and it's not 100% accurate, but I can tell you, the longer we've done budgeting, the more accurate it becomes. Like, when you first start
Oh yeah.
budgeting, it's a little bit of the Wild West. You're kind of guessing. After you've done it for 5 years,
Mhm.
it becomes really accurate. 10 years, even more accurate. Have you seen that to be the case for you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the perfect way to budget, in my opinion, for any home service business is quit thinking about revenue and start thinking about it in terms of how many appointments you have to get to make so many sales to get the revenue. You have to back into what the mechanism is to get to money. Does
Yep.
that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you know for a fact that, let's just take a heat shield job, that a heat shield job brings in $2,000 of profit, and I have no idea. I'm
Sure.
spitballing here. You mentioned John Meredith, and we're all going to the heat shield deal in
Yeah.
a couple of weeks, so I picked it out.
Yeah.
So if you know that that's $2,000, and you know how many appointments you need in order to generate X amount of sales of that $2,000, then you know how much money that makes for you, and you put that in your budget.
Right.
If you start when you're small and you keep it up, when you become a large company, you've already got it done.
Well, doing those small things kind of forces you up to be a bigger company. When you put these systems in
Absolutely.
place, it naturally leads to growth. And that's what a lot of people look at these things as expenses. But to me, if you do it right, it's actually, they're all free. They're part of the sauce that you have to do to get to the next level. And one of the things too I do on budgeting is, clearly some people are like, well, I can't afford this, or they don't. And you've taught a lot about the profit first model, where you put all the stuff in you need to get paid on first. If your salary is $100,000, all those things go in the pie, and then you back into how many. Okay, say we work 220 days a year. How many jobs on average do we do? Look at what you do in the past, and then the budget starts to get real. Then, okay, if we can only do so many, then what do we need to charge per one? Like everybody's like looking at what everybody else is charging in the market. And I'm like, why would you do that? That's impossible. You don't know their expenses. You don't know if they're making any money. You got to run your numbers, on who you are, what you are. And you got to put everything in the cake, because your cake's going to come out different than somebody else's cake.
That's right. So I'll tell you a really funny story. I'll tell you two really quick. The funniest answers I've ever gotten when I've asked the question, how did you come to your pricing? One was, well, I looked at what my competitor was doing, and then I decided I would charge $10 less. That's it. That's how they got there.
If you know nothing about business and you're just starting, I get it. If you've run business more than 2 years, you better not do that.
Yeah. So here's the next one. This is the most fun though. Well, I took a poll for my family and friends and finally decided what my mama would pay for it would be the right one. That's it. So that's how we got. So mama decided.
That's a fact.
Yeah, mama decided I would pay this much for that service. So mama knows everything. So yeah, there you go.
God. I got a funny story like that. I was having actually heart surgery one time. And I was laying there, and the lady I was talking to, she's a really sweet lady. And I said something, and she said she had her own business. And I said, really, what's your own business? She goes, I make pies. I'm like, really? You make pies? And I said, well, where do you sell them? She said, like flea markets and street fairs and the farmer's market, what she said. I said, great. I said, how much do you charge for one of your pies? She said, $8. I said, $8 for a pie? I said, are they any good? And she's like, they're the best. I said, well, hold on. I said, and I'm laying there, I got IVs in and everything. I'm talking to the lady. I said, well, let's think about this for a minute. How long would it take you to make the pie? She goes, I can make about, I think she said 15 a day or something like that. Okay. 15 a day divided by, say, 8 hours. So you make about 2 an hour. Okay. So then I said, how much does it cost to make a pie? And she said, I probably got $2 in ingredients. Okay. And I just went through the numbers, and I said, how much do you pay for a booth at the farmer's market? And she's like, she never thought about that. I said, how many hours you spend at the farmer's market? When I dialed it down, she actually was working for like $1 an hour or less.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God. I said, ma'am, there's a pie shop up in Indiana, my brother in Zionsville, called My Sugar Pie. They charge $40 a pie for a sugar pie. It's just got sugar, cream, butter. And she lost her mind. And she said what you just said. She said, well, my friends won't pay that. I said, well, you need new friends. You can bake your pies for them on the side, but you're selling to the public. If it's damn good, they'll pay $40 for a pie. You can charge $8 a slice and get it. So anyway, you're right about that.
Yeah.
You judge on what other people think the value is, and that's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah,
people criticize us all the time for being expensive. I said, have you ever made a bonbon? You know how much work it is to make one of those? I mean, yes, it's expensive, but it's a different experience. And we have tons of customers, but tons of people complain about our pricing. So good stuff. You were getting ready to say something else?
I was just going to say, I would never, ever complain about your bonbon price. They're awesome.
So a couple of things. It says excellent point. Every successful business needs coaching. Next point from Diane. She says, let's see, Diane, where'd she go? She goes, you need a coach that knows you and how to motivate you. So let's talk about that. That's a good point. Do you motivate people? Do you educate them? Do you do both? What do you do in coaching?
So I disagree with the motivation. I'm going to be a little bit on the
Larry Winget side.
Yeah, the Larry Winget side. Because here's what I think about motivation. If you're not motivated to get your butt out of bed and do what you do every morning, you need to go find something else to do. Because I'm motivated by a whole lot of things, but at the bottom line is when I'm in bed and I go, I really just want to stay here in bed a little bit more. And I start thinking about, well, let's see, I got to work out and then I got to do this and I got to do that. And I've got 22 people relying on me to get my butt out of this bed and start working. That's my motivation every single day. I don't need somebody to motivate me. What I need is somebody to help me do my job better, quicker, faster, work smarter. That's what I need,
So,
and that just ups my motivation too. If I can do that, I'm even motivated even more.
so you would agree with her point that you need a coach that knows you. And some people,
Yes,
for some reason, do need motivation, or they need a pep talk, or they need I talk to a lot of people that are like, man, thanks. You kind of cleared the clouds away and I could see more clearly, or I was in a bad place. And after talking to you, I feel a lot better. I think, to her point, motivation is different for
that
different people. I don't need
yeah. I
motivated.
don't think
I need
I don't
educated.
think what you just I just don't think what you said is motivation. There's a difference in being a good listener and understanding and having empathy and compassion for somebody.
Yeah.
That's a whole different thing than expecting a coach to motivate you. Here's why I don't believe in motivation. Let me go one step further. If you have to have somebody there every single day to motivate you, you'll never stay motivated.
Yeah, I think, and that what Zig Ziglar says, that you need it. Well, he talks about inspiration. I think it's like taking a bath.
Yeah,
It lasts for a little bit, but you need it. I mean, for us, we all have to get that in different ways.
yeah.
I've never gotten that from a coach, but I do know some people do. A couple more things. Let's see. It says, and you have to know how your learning curve is. Are you a visual learner, a book learner? Can you listen and retain? Are you open to being coached? That's a big one. If you're
Hmm.
behind a protective wall of arrogance and not willing to open a door to change, are you are sunk before you start. I don't know who wrote that, but that's so accurate. That is dead on.
Yeah, and that's really true. You have to be willing to be coached. I think if anybody says I'm going to hire a coach so that they can come behind me and tell me how good I am and how great I am, and you just want somebody like that, don't hire a coach, because that's not what a coach is going to do. A coach should be challenging, and you know me, I'm the dream killer, so I am challenging. You
I'm the
realize that?
dream
You
killer.
remember that?
So
So
I know
you
you're the
know.
dream killer. Tell people how you kill dreams.
So this happened with my granddaughter when she was about 9 years old. We went out to dinner, and I asked her what she wanted to do, and she said she wanted to be the next Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell this story really quick. And the whole deal was, I asked her, so how many songs have you written? Do you play the guitar yet? Because I knew she was in guitar lessons, and then I found out she quit. And I'm like, well, how do you expect to be the next Taylor Swift if you're not doing the things that Taylor Swift did? And she started crying, and my son was mad at me, and my daughter-in-law was mad at me. And I told Mark this story, and he goes, man, you're just such a dream killer. I said, well, the deal is, I told her, I said, instead of trying to be somebody else, go be you. Find what you love to do. And you know what? She'll be 15 this year in April, and she is a absolutely ace club volleyball player and loves it.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
She found what she loves to do, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's like Bill Gates. When you heard about him when he was a kid, he got a chance to go into a college that had a computer when nobody had a computer, and they gave him free time. They didn't pay
Mm-hmm.
the kid to do it. He just had to code. He coded every waking hour and became a geek. And whenever you hear anybody that's totally driven, you don't have to tell them or coach them to do it. They just have an inner feeling that that's what they have to do every day, and they become exceptional. Couple more things. So that was Yvette that said the wall of arrogance. That was from Yvette. So that was good.
Awesome.
Another person says, I need my coach to be critical on every aspect. So tell me, what do you do on being critical? Like, what are you finding?
So I think what happens, well, first of all, I don't really feel like I'm a critical coach. There's a difference in challenging somebody as a as opposed to tearing somebody down. I don't want to ever tear somebody down. What I really want to do is find the places that they need help with and give them the help they need, whether that's me or somebody else that I might know, or a program or anything like that needs that. But to me, what a coach does is not tear people down, but build them up. And
Yeah.
there are ways to build people up and help them find the things they're strongest in. I'm a big believer, Mark, in staying in your strengths, but understanding enough about your weaknesses to be able to lead in them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think, and Yvette, man, Yvette's on fire tonight. Here's what
I'm
she said.
telling you.
She says, there's a big difference in being critical and being a critic. Are you killing the dream or are you helping them realize it? What's up, Yvette? Did you drink? Did you sleep at Holiday Inn? What's going on? My goodness. Good stuff. I mean, I couldn't agree more.
I think some people look at challenges as being critical. And I look at them as two different things. Critic to me is, and I grew up with two very critical parents. They were school teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So, my dad, I couldn't spell worth a hill of beans. I still can't spell, but spell check spells for me. So y'all don't know I'm that bad. But he was my principal when I was in the 7th grade, and I failed a spelling test. I made a 0 on a spelling test. I didn't just make a D. I made a 0 on a spelling test. And he came down on me, and I remember that. And I told myself then, I'm going to try never to do that. And you know what? I grew up and became him, and I had to learn to not be him. Oh. Because that's not a good way to be. That was one of my first leadership lessons, by the way, that I learned from a coach. And it dawned on me that I had done exactly to some of the people in my company that my dad had done to me that I swore I'd never do. Yeah, so I really am careful about that.
Those scars from our parents.
Yeah. That was a challenging moment.
Yeah,
for me. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the difference. So, like, for instance, I do consulting. Like, people come into my blue collar university. I do 2 days. I show you what we do for one of the days. I show you all of our systems, our things. And then I work with you, with their company for a day. And then I'm pretty much done. People call me for a little bit of follow-up. But I'm really consulting you on what works for us and letting you go apply that. Now, that being said, a lot of people do apply it and really come out of there flying. But I always say you need to get with a coach after me and, show them the plan that we created together with my knowledge and your willingness. And it's your plan at the end. It's not my plan. But then I think they need to be handed off to a coach or somebody that sees that plan all the way through to get the most value out of consulting, because so many times consulting, especially if they come into your business, you don't change hardly anything. Like a consultant coming in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
A consultant is somebody that just, you get a lot of knowledge really, really quickly. And then you take it back and you do with that knowledge what you can. What I find with it is it can be overwhelming.
For sure.
Can absolutely be, whether you're going to their business and writing a 7,500 page report, or coming to you, Mark, and getting all the things. I mean, it's like drinking from a fire hose.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. And then they go back, and here's the question: what do I do first?
And for me, I give them a list on their plans. But again, I think it depends on how good the consultant is and how knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Like you said, some consultants have general knowledge, but not knowledge in your particular area, which is good in some ways. Some have very specific knowledge, but it's still up to you. So I think there's a place for all of them. Mentors have a totally different role, but they definitely, on a mentor, to me, have to have something that they've achieved that you haven't. There's a lot of coaches and business people out there that have not really run businesses. They took a course or watch the class, and next thing you know, they're a life coach or a business coach. I remember a lady I talked to, and she was a business coach, and I said, well, tell me about the businesses you've run. She's like, well, I've actually never run a business. I work for a big firm. I'm like, hold on, you were an employee at a big firm? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, well, how am I going to have you coach me? You've never done what I do. I mean, I need somebody, in my opinion, that has at least been close to my shoes or bigger for me to go, yeah, let me get behind that person.
Yeah, and I think the same way. I also think that sometimes having coaches that are in your business directly is really great, but there's a lot of things you can learn from going outside your business as well. And so
Every
I
time.
think don't just, yeah, I would tell anybody that, yes, if you want somebody to come in and show you exactly what needs to be done here, here, and here, but if you need a business coach, you can learn a lot of things from coaches that are from outside your industry. So
Yeah.
don't think that everybody you need is going to be somebody that's right in your industry, and that includes me. I mean, I know more about the chimney industry than I ever thought I would know. But I don't run a chimney company.
You
And
know,
I've got asked recently, could you run the chimney company? And I said, yeah, my retirement plan, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go run Mark's.
I like it. Sold. Done. I think it's a good point that you have a lot of knowledge that you could do something, but you're choosing, that's not your choice. A couple other things here. This was from Yvette. She says, when I bragged on her, she said, that's just me, Mark. When I get a chance, I love to mentor. Hey, good for you, Yvette. I mean,
Absolutely.
sounds like you should be doing more of it. You're dead on.
Yep.
Yvette, again, she said, before I went full-time into this trade, I went into other businesses to help them organize their offices and realize how they are wasting time and resources to help them improve revenue. So let's flip that to what you do. Are you doing on-site visits? Do they come to you? Is it Zoom? Like, what's your process?
So right now what I'm doing is I am putting together a group coaching of no more than 10 people.
Okay.
So we're going to meet once a month in a group, and they're going to get one call a month with me. So I'm going back to the basics. That's why I'm very specific on what I'm looking for right now, because this is a need that I have seen, and it's one I want to cover. And not everybody is going to be in that groove. I'm wanting to really teach these guys the basics of business and finance. If I ever take any one portion of this and go out, I can do the marketing all day long, but I'm not competing with the marketing companies.
Yeah.
The part of the marketing that I'm doing is really different in this. But I'll just tell you that if I do anything that is very specific, it's going to be in cash flow.
Right.
Because I see that's another huge place that people just don't understand how to manage their money in a small business.
Do you still follow the profit first process?
Yep, I do.
Yeah.
I have modified it in our business, and I find it works a little bit better. And so that's really what I'm going to be teaching. But it's multiple accounts. It's knowing what's coming in. It's getting the right reports, the right KPIs, so that you know exactly what you need to do.
Again, a lot of people may know that, but they don't do it. I think that's what a coach comes in and says, I know you know this. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Check the box and put it in the done file and put it in the new ways file. The older we get, the less we like change. So it's just like working out or doing anything else. You got to stay flexible. Here's the other thing I always say about leadership is the best leaders ask the best questions. And when I'm around people, especially if they come to my facility and they ask no questions, they just listen to me talk, I don't like that, because I don't think, and especially if they're not taking notes and they're not asking questions, it's almost like they just want me to talk to them and I'm going to say the magic word that changes their life. That's not going to happen. I'm going to tell you a list of stuff you better write down and do, and ask questions about how this does, and question and go deep with me on this. Don't just listen to me talk. And I think you probably have a similar thing. The most active people ask a lot of questions. The best leaders ask good questions.
Well, the program that I'm putting them through has an entire curriculum behind it. So they're going to be going, part of the fee covers the curriculum, and they're going to be going in and doing curriculum. And then when we meet, we're going to be talking about what they did, what they didn't do, what they struggle with, all that kind of thing. So it's a much bigger deal. It's just not getting on the phone and, shooting the, with everybody that's there and, in a circle and holding hands and singing Kumbaya. That's not what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I mean, I think a curriculum is a great, place. So you said you're doing group coaching, but everybody
Mm-hmm.
kind of has on the phone call. It's going to get real and more individual.
Yep.
Is there any certain companies that aren't a good qualifier for you? Who's not a good qualifier for you?
Let's see. Somebody that thinks they've got all the answers and already knows everything. Yeah, not interested. You got to be
Well,
open. I mean,
do they
that's
need
it.
to be open for growing? Like what if it's a one-man operation? Does he need coaching? Like what's the level?
Absolutely. So I actually think a one man operation, if you can get a one man operation to understand his operation, if he ever decides he wants to be more, he's got the foundation.
Yep.
I mean,
That's
it's a
the E-Myth principle.
foundational level.
The
Yeah.
E-Myth principle was that you can start as small as you want, but make it a turnkey operation. Therefore, when you want to turn the key and move it up, you've got the things in place.
Yes. And once you have a really good foundation already built, I mean, Mark, it's like anything else. It's like a chimney. You've been out in places that they put chimneys. They built masonry chimneys, but they built it on such a lousy foundation. It's cracked and fallen over and all kinds of problems. It's the
Well,
same thing.
and then at
Yeah.
every certain level of the business, you have to rebuild the foundation anyway. And you have to talk to people that are at that level. Like there's been several times that I've kind of had coaches, but I kind of outgrew them or it kind of ran its course. And that's not a bad thing. If the coach is good, for me, the coach says, hey, my mentor, John Meredith, he said, dude, I need to hand you off because you've outgrown the teacher. He said, you've passed me up. You're teaching me now. The student has become the teacher. I need to hand you to this group of executives that run $100 million companies or $1 billion companies. And
Yeah.
and he needed the same thing. So there's a time that if you're hungry for knowledge, you keep moving up the thing. But to me, the best thing somebody can do if you're a consultant or a coach is do the work. Like do the
Oh yeah.
damn work that the coach says or the consultant says. It's so infuriating, and it'll make people not want to work with you if they don't do the work. So how do you help them do the work to stay your client?
Well, that's part of the accountability part.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the other thing that I'm a little bit different. They're going to sign a year contract with me.
Okay.
So they're going to make a commitment. I
Yeah.
don't do anything that people
Skin
don't
in the
make
game.
commitments. Yeah, you got to put skin in the game. You got to make commitment because I'm making a commitment that I'm gonna show up as well. So it is a mutual thing. So for 1 year we're getting married. We're making the commitment. I mean, that's the deal. And a lot of it is the camaraderie that we end up
Yep.
having with people. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hear you. There's a difference in listening and hearing. I'm going to listen and really hear you. And we're going to talk about those issues that nobody else really wants to talk about because, it's all about, oh, just change your mindset. Just go do this. They get that at conventions. I can't tell you how many times that they've talked to this guy and the guy said, just do this. They don't know how to do that. Okay.
Well, and also they don't know. I've seen people give advice and I cringe at what they
Yeah.
say because I know I might know that guy's business and he's giving advice on really how to stay like him or her. And that's not, that's cringe. To me, I always say, follow the people who are followable, that you want to mimic their business. Go along that line. If you want a certain level of business and you like how somebody else runs their business, make sure you understand the whole business that they run. And again, take everybody's advice with a grain of salt. But we got a bunch of comments coming in. One says, "I need your contact info." I'm going to post that in just a second. Love that. Skin of the game must be a Texas thing.
Yeah.
That's why we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can listen twice as well as much as you speak. But up here, I think somebody used, like voice to text. She said, "LOL, that's why in class, I think they meant to say, I don't ask the silly questions out loud because I know some newbie is thinking the question, but I ask the silly questions out loud because I know some newbie is thinking the question but afraid to ask. So I ask and they learn." That sounds like a Yvette thing. Jeremy Evans says, "That's exactly right. At the end of the day, it's up to the owner and the team to execute on the coach's suggestions and feedback." Yeah. I mean, how frustrating is it when you go back? Like, I remember when I wrote the book, my book, that people were like, "Why do you give everybody all this information? And why do you keep telling everybody how to do it for free on all your stuff? Why do you keep doing this?" And I said, "Well," and say, "Aren't you afraid you're going to get a bunch of competition?" I said, "Well, unfortunately, most people will not do anything I say. They'll just listen." And I asked Drew Stein one time, and I don't really listen to. I always say this about Drew. I told this to Drew one time. I said, "Why won't people just listen? I tell them exactly what to do." I said, "Why won't they do it?" He goes, "Well, they just want to see you do it. They want to know that you do it. They don't want to do it themselves." I'm like, that sounded so foreign, but became so real for me over the years. And sometimes they want to hire a coach because they want you to tell them the magic thing. And you're not going to let them do that. You're going to make them do the work. I know you.
Yeah. I mean, they have to do the work. They're not, you said if you're not willing to do the work and here's the thing about it. You're not working on your business, guys. You're doing the work on you.
That's so good. That's right.
Yeah. And that's really the bottom line. Everybody thinks it's their business that needs the work. That's a lie. You're lying to yourself if that's what you think. If you think your business is going to change in any way, shape, or form without you doing the work and changing you, won't happen. I guarantee it. I've never met anybody that's successful, that's run a successful business. I've lived it. I know Mark's lived it. Everybody I know that's lived it. If you're not willing to change you, your business will never change.
That is gold. Craig Groeschel says something like that on a leadership podcast. He said the business gets better when the leader gets better. You're so right on that. The business will get better. The better leadership you get, it just naturally pulls the whole thing. But if you don't think you need work and need help, the business can probably it stays at the speed of the leader, right? The speed of the leader is the speed of the pack. So the person that asked for Taylor's information, his website, I posted it wrong last week. It's Taylor Cahill at taylorcahill.com is his website. And you said you're putting together another free webinar, but you don't have the dates for it yet, but you're going to do this again.
Yeah, I'm basically going to run a free webinar. It's called How to Grow a Small Business. I mean, that's it. I did one last week. Going to do it again in February. I'm trying to figure out the dates. It will be posted on that website as soon as I get the dates on there. I think it's still up there for January because I ended up going to Ohio. Hadn't had a chance to get everything fixed. But that's what happens. I own a marketing company, and guess who gets to be last in my company? Me. That's it. That's the way it works. Anyway, and that's okay. But it's going to be in February. The coaching is going to start March 4th, Saturday, March 4th. We're going to have a pre-call. There's going to be some other things happening in February. But before that, I'll be giving that. It's an hour, just how to grow a small business. I'm going to go over a lot of the things I went over just on this podcast with the 6 things in your business. But you also wanted to ask me another question.
Well, one more thing. His email is taylor@sparkmarketer.com if you want to reach out to him through email. There was another question. Let's see. My coaches simply ask, why are we here? If I do not do what we agreed was needed, if I didn't do right. So after a while, the
That's
coach
it.
goes, why am I here? We agreed this and you didn't do it. I think that's pretty harsh. That's a pretty hard reality. Like, what are we doing here? And I know I've talked to
Yeah.
Chad Murray, and he does coaching too. And he says the same thing. He's like, at some point, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's why you're going to sign a year contract.
Yeah, I mean, you got to put their feet to the fire. And
That's
then,
it.
you know, I'm doing this exercise workout called 75 Hard. And there's no commitment, no contract, but I feel internally committed because it says you have to do all these things every day. So you got to work out twice a day. One of them's outside. After this, I got some guests at the house. I got to go running for 45 minutes. But it is that commitment. So you want to see the results. Like, you want to cheer them on, right? I mean, you want to be
Yeah.
proud so, well, man, we're about out of time. Do you have anything? We got about 5 more minutes, and a lot of people said thanks, Taylor, for being on tonight, and then thanks, Mark, for having
Bet.
him here. And so, a lot of good comments. What you got? Anything to leave with the viewers with?
Well, I tell you what, if you fit one of those buckets, I'll have a discovery call with you. You can go to taylorkhill.com and book a discovery call with me. If you don't know if you want to do it or not, I'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you. And Mark asked me a question about marketing at this time
Oh yeah, I'm
of the
sorry.
year.
Let's go ahead and
Yeah.
spend some time on that.
So
Let's.
let me just say a couple of things about this. Marketing is not an option when things go south like they are. The people who will win during this time are those people that keep their marketing going. I
So
promise you.
let me just preface my question to you, which was, I said, hey, I'm getting a lot of people saying that we're slowing down. What should I do? What's the next step? And in fact, I did a podcast on it yesterday. And I asked Taylor, I said, please discuss this with people, because I have not a lot of people do the absolutely exact wrong thing this time of year when things are slowing down. So to say that, you were talking about not cutting marketing, what should they do?
So I will tell you there's three things that if you want to just up your presence in your local market and stay in front of everybody else, and everybody hates the first one, but you got to get your reviews. You have to get reviews, put a system in, do something to where you are getting good reviews in your area.
Right.
If you don't have a way to text people, email people, whatever after the fact, you've got to have a system, something. There are other systems out there. Make sure you're doing something to get reviews. That's number one. Secondly, up your customer service. This is the time that if you're going to invest in anything, invest in good customer service. I think I read an article, Shep Hyken. I don't know if anybody follows him, but he's a guy that's all about customer service, and I totally agreed with something that he said. He said, going into 2023, if you don't have customer service, you may not have a business going into 2024, because there's too many businesses out there that have figured out how to look like a world-class business. And if you're not one of them, you're going to get left behind. So
I
figure that
agree.
out. If you don't know how to do that, email me. We've got a system. Mark uses it. I've got other people in it. You know, happy to talk to you about getting your stuff together. I was almost said something else I shouldn't
You can say it.
have.
You'll
Yeah,
get on the
just
show.
get your shit together. Yeah, and start looking like a world-class organization.
Yeah.
The third thing that I would tell you is look at your trucks, your website, look at everything that you do, and make sure that you are consistent. Consistency in branding, consistency in the way you look, consistency in the way you do business, consistency in your SOPs. Everything in your business should be about being consistent from start to finish. You do those three things, you will come out of this okay.
So let me comment off that consistency, because some of the things, and I talked to somebody recently that in order to save money, they switched website providers and had a new website built, and it totally knocked them out of Google. They're like, we can't get back on it. And we thought we were saving money, and now it costs us a fortune because you can't even find us. And we've been in business 20 years. Talk about that money saving idea. You know me, well, I mean, for me, I just run a campaign and I run it till it's dead, like years and years. I don't change campaigns
Yeah.
very often. You know me. I'm not trying to create the newest campaign every 6 months. I'm running that campaign till she's dead, and then I have another good idea. But talk about consistency in websites.
So what people don't realize is when you have a new website built, there's a lot of stuff under the hood that has to happen in order for it to move forward. So there are redirects that have to happen for all your links. That's the number one reason that people get a new website and it tanks them, is the new company, they do not do the redirects. Okay. And I've seen companies do this. They're like, sure, we'll build a new website and we'll do it for X amount of dollars and blah, blah, blah. And they totally ruin a company. Company goes out of business, goes bankrupt because the redirects weren't done.
Yeah.
At the same time, I've seen those people panic, go back to the original marketing company, and the original marketing company act like a hero because they just upload the old website, you know, and all the links are there, and they come back on Google and everybody's happy and they take all the credit instead of telling people the truth about what happened.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just crazy. If
Yeah.
somebody wants to leave us, this is in true transparency. If you want to leave us, we're going to set you up for success if you leave. Because the last thing I ever want you to do is leave us and fail.
Yeah.
I want it to, if you're going to leave us, go to somebody better. I don't think there's many people better out there, but if there is, find them.
Well, I've
You
seen you
know,
do that. I've known you to have customers. You're like, hey, if you're not happy with us, I want to make sure you're happy. And it does make the other company look like a hero because they took all of your hard work and they're like, they just maybe had a different spin on it, but it's all the stuff you did. I've seen
it's
that
all the
too.
stuff. Yeah.
But
Yeah. If
that's
you're
just
number
speaks
one in
to
the
your character. That's who you are.
Yeah, if you're number one in the market and you change companies and stay number one, that new company didn't do much for you because we did all the work and
I've
they're maintaining it, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I have no hard feelings about that.
yeah.
I really don't. It's
A couple
okay.
last things. I know it looks like you're parked. You guys are probably using the restroom and gassing up. So I appreciate it. Let me just say a couple more things. I'll let you go. Yvette says if you're going through a slow period, you need to market the most, or in that you need to market the most, or in that period, so people are more in that period, so people know you're still around. Don't sit on your laurels. Get out there. And then another person says you need to get out in your community, join BNI, join a chamber of commerce, sponsor baseball teams, football teams, hockey teams, take your business truck to events where your business shirts, giveaways, have your clothes, have cards, have giveaways with you always. So the point is old school guerrilla marketing too, never hurts,
Sure.
not very expensive. Network marketing, guerrilla marketing never hurts. Most people start that way when they have no money. And then as you get bigger and bigger, you just buy all your advertising. But those old school processes, they still pay dividends, man. That's a good point.
No, and I totally agree. I had a guy just recently come to me, and he had gone with a marketing company that got recommended by somebody in the industry, blah, blah, blah. He said, I said, how much you paying for it? He said, well, it's free. I said, so what'd you get for it? He says, it's free. He goes, but I don't understand. I'm paying him $1,000 a week. I said, what are you paying him for? He goes, I have no idea. True story. I have no idea. I said, so you're paying him $4,000 a month. You haven't got your website. When were you guys supposed to get this website? And he goes, well, I've been talking to him since June. This was in December. Okay. This is a true story. I said, look, you can't afford us because you no longer have a budget. And he goes, that's true. I'm broke. I said, okay, this is what you do. Every single thing that they just said is what I told him to go do.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. I said, also call every roofing company you know out there. every HVAC company out there, take the owner to lunch. He goes, I did that a couple of years ago. It really didn't work. I said, well, how many did you have take to lunch? He said, I took 10 people to lunch. He goes, I got one guy that sent me work. I said, is he still sending you work? He said, yeah, he is. I said, what if you'd have taken 50?
Yeah. What if
Now
you did
you'd have
10 a
5
month?
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
there are things that you could be doing, but everybody wants to rely on digital marketing because they don't have to do much.
It's the easy way. You can focus on other
It
things.
is.
I'm as guilty to it as everybody. So,
Yeah.
all right, brother, man, I appreciate you. I know you guys are parked. I appreciate you making time in the car. Man, you've got great cell service. Whoever you've got, keep them. Because, man, you stayed great. I mean, you had a couple little glitches, but, man, that was great. So thank
Yeah.
you.
It's pretty awesome. Thanks,
All right,
guys.
buddy.
I really appreciate you having me on
Yeah.
and would love to help anybody out there. Thank you.
Okay, man. Thank you.
All
See you,
righty.
buddy. See you.
Bye-bye.
Let's see. Taylor's so great. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Had a lot of great comments. Yvette is on fire. What's up, Yvette? Thank you for that. Diane, always great. Several of you guys, Jeremy, thanks for piping in here. Well, so next week I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to actually be on a scuba dive trip in a little bitty island south of St. Martin. So I don't know if I can do it. Plus, I've got a weight issue I got a lot of scuba gear and it's pretty heavy. We're on these little planes. So next week may be a miss. If I can figure out how to pull it off, I'm going to, because I don't come home for very long. I go on a dive trip and then we go to the Heat Shield Summit in Florida, and we're going to scuba dive there too. But we're going to hit the house for 6 hours and then get on another plane. I get to actually be the keynote speaker for the Heat Shield event. I've done that probably 5 times since the inception, and it should be a lot of fun. I got a pretty hopefully funny opening to the show, but other than that, it's a great event. It actually doesn't talk about chimneys that much, a little bit, but it's more like what Taylor talked about. Is he's going to be down there too, but more life stuff, more business stuff, more leadership things, how to run the business versus doing the technical work, and I always get a lot out of it. Great friends, great people. So anyway, I will try to be back next week. If I'm not, I'll try to be back the week after that. So thank you guys for everything. Hang in there. Thank you for all the comments, and we'll talk to you soon. See you.